Welcome to Soliant TV's series As Seen in FileMaker 13. My name is Martha Zink, and in this video I'm going to focus on using icons with the Popover button and how to make search really easy for your users. In this file, I have a really simple project list, so you'll see that I have a total of 5 projects, and I actually have 2 popovers here. I have a menu popover that would let me get to other parts of the database, and then I also have this icon that's a magnifying glass. From a user's perspective, I would assume that that's going to help me search this layout. So I can click here, type Z for Zink, and there we go. Just by hitting the return key, I was able to get my found set. It's a really simple little thing, right? It's just an icon of a magnifying glass, but it can be really powerful for a user. And where this really applies is when you don't have the toolbar showing. So if my layout looked like this and I couldn't access the quick find within the toolbar, how else can your user do it? Well, in previous solutions in FileMaker 12, I had a field on the layout that had maybe the little magnifying glass next to it, but it was always on the layout, and it actually took up a lot of space because in some cases users wanted to be able to search with a long string of text. But in this case, it's hidden until the user actually wants to see it, until the user actually wants to search for something on the layout. So that's the scenario. Now let me go ahead and talk about how I've accomplished this. And the first thing I want to talk about is just what this script does. It's a really simple script. It's actually very similar to the script I showed in the previous video. And all that it's doing is it's checking to make sure that the field isn't empty. And if it's not empty, it's taking that value and it's performing the quick find. Now, the key thing about this is that there is no go to layout on here. So because of that, this script is actually completely reusable, which means that I could have this on any layout, and as long as quick find is turned on one or more fields, I'll be able to perform the quick find on that layout without any additional scripting. And if there's one thing I love is the ability to take one script and then be able to use it across multiple layouts. So now let's talk about the actual popover. So I'm going to jump into layout mode, and if I double click, this is a really simple popover that really just has a title and it just has one field, and you'll notice that there are a couple of script triggers on there. So let me show you how we would do that from scratch. In order to add a popover button, it's actually the same button in the toolbar as it is for button, for just the regular FileMaker buttons that we're used to creating. So if you click and hold, you would get the popover button. You can also go to the insert menu and choose popover. So I get my crosshairs, I'll go ahead and draw it out, and it asks me for a title, so I'm going to give it the title of search. And then you have the ability of where you want to position the popover, which I will put on the bottom. The cool thing is that if the popover can't fit in the place where you want it to go, FileMaker will adjust it so it'll move it in the future for cases where the user doesn't have enough screen real estate. So I have my title, I have the location of the popover. I'm going to click so that now just the button is selected. Now from a terminology perspective, this is the popover button, and then down here we have the actual popover. So I'm going to choose the popover button, and on the inspector I'm going to choose the appearance tab, and we want to change the fill to be an image. I'm going to choose my search image. It's a little hard to see since it's white, but it is the magnifying glass, and then I can choose insert. Now if you get something like this, it's probably because your icon is too big and because the fill graphic is set to tile. So over here in the inspector I can change this to scale to fit. Something to note when it comes to using icons and the popover buttons, it does have a shadow on it. It might be a little hard to see on the video, but there is a slight outline here. If I click on that button again, I can go over to the advanced graphics section on the same appearance tab and uncheck outer shadow. And now it actually doesn't have a background to it at all. So it looks nice and clean. Just again, a very simple icon that the user will understand to mean that they can search on the layout. So now that we've done that part, the only thing left to do is to add the field that we can search on, that the user can type in. And then after that, it's add those script triggers that do a couple of important things, and we'll talk about those. So using the new field picker, so I'm going to hit Command K here on the Mac, Control K on the PC, and I'm going to choose from the table called resource. I have this global field called zzg_search. Now, if you haven't used the field picker, there's some options about dragging down here. And I actually don't want a label, so I'm just going to remove that. And I'm just dragging one field, so really the field placement doesn't matter here. Now be aware that dragging onto a popover, if you drag the object, even if the field that you're dragging is slightly off of the popover, it's actually going to go behind the popover. So just be aware that it actually does have to fit right within the popover window. So now here it's on the layout, and then if you click on the popover itself, you can resize it. So I'm going to go ahead and make this a little bit shorter since it doesn't take up that much space. And there we go. So we have all the pieces, all the components in order to make this work. Let me just jump into browse mode real quick. And you'll see that when I click on this, the first thing you should notice is that it doesn't automatically take me into the search field. From a user's perspective, I would expect it to, because as soon as I click that, I expect to be able to start typing. But instead, I get this error message saying that I'm not in a field, or that maybe I meant to click something else, where really I should already be in this field. So that's actually where the popover script triggers can come into play. So let me double click on the popover button, and then I'll double click on the popover. And I do have the ability to set script triggers. So on object enter, so whenever I enter the popover, I have a script called go to object, where whatever the script parameter is, it's actually going to take me to that object. So I could say go to object, and I'll call it search field, and OK all the way through. And then I have to make sure to give this field that name so that it knows to go to that field in that popover. So on the position tab, I've clicked the ZZG search field, and I'm going to give it the name search field one word. So let's go ahead and test just that. I'm going to click on the magnifying glass, and you'll see it took me right into the field, so now I can type. However, this is just a global field. It actually has no functionality other than, I can type in it. So when I click away from it, nothing happens. I'm going to jump into layout mode, double click on the popover button again, and then right click on the field and say I want to add a script trigger. So on object exit, so whenever I leave that field, I want to run the script called search layout. Click OK. And then we should be off to the races. Actually, one more thing I want to point out is a user, in a text field, if you hit the return key, it will actually put in a paragraph return so that you can enter multiple lines of text, kind of like in a notes field. But here, if I hit the return key, which is what I expect to do when I'm done with my search, I want it to perform the search. So over on the data tab, I'm going to change it so that it's going to go to next object using the return and the enter. So you'll see that if in browse mode now, if I type in Z and hit the return key, it actually performed the find. If I hit that again and type in P just to get a different found set, you'll see that it hides the popover and then it performs the script the way I expect it to. Like I mentioned earlier, what's great about this is once it's created, once you're ready to go, you can go ahead and just copy and paste this onto other layouts. Because the script has no context, there's no go to layout in there, it's going to perform the quick find on the existing layout. So the reusability is really high on this. Now this is just one example of how you can use icons along with the popover and popover buttons, but I really think it's a useful way to start thinking about how we can minimize what we show on the screen so that the user is focused on what it is that they want to accomplish. I hope you enjoyed the video, and thanks for watching.